Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descendant life forms are so amazingly primitive that two of them still think doing a podcast called Digital Watches are a pretty neat idea is a pretty neat idea. These podcasters have, or rather had, a problem, which was this. Actually, this is the solution.
Hi there, this is Jeff. I'm with my friend Brian, and this is our bonus episode.
So, Jeff, what is this?
Well, Brian, this is going to be my proof that everything is connected, and sometimes algorithms work.
Oh, there you go. Awesome.
So not that long ago, I was just flipping through my Facebook page, and something I didn't even know existed popped up.
You mean we're not going to be talking about a comic book today?
We are not going to be talking about a comic book today.
So, Jeff, what did you discover on your Facebook feed?
I discovered that Douglas Adams' Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency has been turned into a stage play.
Awesome.
And not only that, but a local community theater group was performing it this month and next month.
Isn't that amazing? Good timing.
Yeah, I was completely shocked. So therefore, I had to go, and I had to drag Denise with me.
Yes, the ever-suffering wife.
Right. So little information about the play. It's based off of the book, the first book, the original book.
Okay.
It was co-written, has co-authors by James Goss. Do you remember who James Goss is?
James Goss novelized the Doctor Who and the Cricket Men version, initially written by Douglas Adams.
Okay, so...
That doesn't sound right. I don't have it right. What the hell did he do again?
Douglas Adams wrote a multi-episode serial for Doctor Who called Doctor Who and the Cricket Men. And they said, no thank you. So he tried to make a movie out of it. Right. And they said, no thank you. So he said, man, I really like this idea, so I'm going to turn it into Life, the Universe, and Everything. And he wrote Life, the Universe, and Everything. But he still had his original notes from when it was a Doctor Who episode, and James Goss took all those notes and created what he thought Doctor Who and the Cricket Men would be, and he turned it into a novel. A tedious novel.
I think you said that better than I could ever say it, Chef.
Okay. So we'll leave it with that. Mm-hmm. And the other co-author is Arvind Ethan David, or unsure, it could be Arvind Ethan David. He wrote the second volume of the Dirk Gently comic book, subtitled A Spoon Too Short. Now, we've already recorded some of those episodes that are going to come out after this, and we've called him David and we've called him David, but we're not quite sure which one it is. But he was co-author of that, again, proving everything is connected.
Right, so Goss, who wrote The Cricket Men, and David, who wrote parts of the comic book.
Yes.
Collaborated to create this play.
Correct. So the production I saw is put on by a theater group called Theater on the Hill. They're out of Bolingbrook, Illinois, but the performance that Denise and I saw was at the Warrenville Community Center, which was just a little small auditorium, very, very small. everything's right there up close. Evidently, I was told that the Bolingbrook is going to have a bigger production because they have a much bigger outdoor theater that they're going to be performing at.
Interesting.
It was directed by a gentleman named Michael Fudala. Really nice guy. Well, I'll tell you some of the things I talked about with him later. But when I went to speak to him after the performance, I left my program on my seat, and then I never picked it up on my way out.
Oh, geez.
So unfortunately, I don't have who played which role. All I have is a list of the actors in alphabetical order as they are listed on the website.
Oh,
but I do want to credit all of them. I'm going to mention all of their names, and I'll talk about a few of their performances in a little more detail later. So this was starring, or will star, Jim Doherty, Ryan Hans, Michaela Horn, Kyle Januska, Karen Latz, Devin Lance, Evelyn Meza, Kayla Mui, Kathleen Nettles, Jody Skudleric, Meredith Strombeck, Luke Zvek, and Garrett Wong, and William Smith as Reg. So he's the only guy that I know who played what role because they singled him out at the end of the cast list.
Right.
I'm not quite sure what I want to talk about first. First, my overall impression is I was extremely impressed with the production. The cast was phenomenal. And doing this show as a performer, you need to be all in. You can't phone in a Dirk Gently performance. You've got to just go for it. And they all seemed like they were all in. Were their performances flawless? No, of course they weren't. How could they be? We've mentioned over and over that when we try to read excerpts out of the book, it takes us about 3 tries to get it right.
Absolutely.
Because when you read it... Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm curious to hear what you say because, as you know, I believe... Was it James Goss that did all that extra parenthetical stuff?
No, that was Owen Coffer.
Oh, right.
And the 6th book.
Right. Go ahead.
But when you read it, Douglas's prose makes perfect sense and is very elegantly written. When you try to say it, you discover that all of the words are in the wrong order. So I commend them for the very few errors in reciting their dialogue.
Excellent. Is the dialogue reminiscent then of the book?
Yes. The play is in 2 acts, and the first act is taken straight from the book.
Oh, okay.
Everything that is in the play is in the book, but not everything that's in the book is in the play.
Well, that would make sense. It would be an awfully long play if it had everything.
Correct. So, to talk about a couple of the characters and the staging and the costuming, take a guess at how the Electric Monk was presented.
I would assume in a humanoid form. Maybe with some face paint.
He's not even in it.
Oh. Okay, that's interesting.
But his horse is.
Is that right?
Yes. So, again, none of these things that I'm going to say about the play itself has anything to do with the performers.
Okay.
They have to produce this and do it as it's written. But they did Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency without the Electric Monk.
Okay. That's a challenge.
So you might ask, well, then who killed Gordon?
I would ask that, Jeff. Who killed Gordon?
No idea. Just some black figure that stood up and shot him for no apparent reason with no explanation of the how or the whys of it.
Oh, okay. Well, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
As you're getting involved with this first act of the play and some information about the characters, then were you able to enjoy the story as it was presented, or did it have so many holes, or was it so defined as only those who had a deep understanding of the book would be able to enjoy it?
I am going to say it is leaning toward the latter.
Okay.
So okay. And one of the things that we have talked about many, many times in Douglas's book is he has 90% of the book in the beginning sounds like nonsense.
Right.
And in the last chapter or whatever, somewhere near the end, he ties it all together in ways that you can't imagine, but he connects everything.
Right.
There's no way to put everything in the play. So the beginning, the first act, which was outstanding, like I said, this is straight out of the book Douglas Adams' work. So there wasn't any interpretations. This was just straight out of the book. Had a lot of missing pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of holes. So at the second act, when it was time to tie it all together, they couldn't tie it all together the way Douglas did because they didn't have all those pieces.
Okay.
So Goss and David had to create their own ending for their play, which leaves a little bit of head scratching. Again, it's going to take the purist and disappoint them because it's not what it should be, and
Right.
It can't be what it should be because it's too complicated. But in hindsight, being a spectator, you can be the armchair quarterback, as they say,
Right.
and say, well,
Right.
I would have done this or this or
Mhm.
this or this or
Mhm.
this or that.
Mhm.
And there might be a little bit of that I talk out to. So, as I mentioned, they kept the horse, and the horse was in the bathroom.
Okay.
And I'm sure they kept it because it has my favorite joke in the book, which is when I come back, if it seems like I'm acting strange, I want you to tackle me to the ground.
Right.
And the only way they can do that is if he comes down and says something like, it was just a horse in my bathroom. So,
Right.
So then he gets tackled to the ground, and I was giggling, waiting for it. So that was perfect.
Right. I would imagine that was Denise's favorite part of the play.
Well, another thing that I said is they didn't have the monk.
Right.
So therefore, Reg doesn't go to the pink planet. He only goes
Right.
to Greece. And he'll
Right.
state during the play that the horse must have just wandered in when I went to Greece. But I really don't know why horses are just meandering all over Greece, walking into random doors. But that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And without the monk, there's no opportunity to use my favorite passage in the book, which was actually referenced in the book's dedication to his mother, who liked the bit about the horse.
Right.
So there's a passage in the book dedicated to his mother
Right.
that is cut out of the play.
Mm-hmm.
Because they cut out the monk. And again, how would they bring him in? I really couldn't tell you.
Right. Right.
So one of my feelings about all of that is an entire play could probably be written about the relationship between the monk and his horse.
Right.
And
Right.
if you're going to cut one of them out of the play, you got to cut them both. Because without one, the other doesn't make any sense.
Right.
About Kubla Khan. In this version, Reg had previously gone back in time, wore a fake beard, and disrupted Coleridge. So he is the only one who has ever read the original epic.
Okay.
In this, the ghost just told Michael his story. He didn't have Michael read Kubla Khan and, with his help, fully understand the impact of the epic poem.
Okay.
So there was really no point in bringing up Kubla Khan. Because the ghost directly told his story to Michael, but you can't cut out Kubla Khan because the entire point of the first book is the Kubla Khan thing, which Dirk changed to save the world.
Right.
But they didn't have to change it to save the world because it had already been changed and the ghost just talked directly to Michael. So, again, it's when you know the real story and you're watching this with these changes, it's kind of difficult to wrap your mind around. Again, entertaining is all get out, but frustrating underneath when you're watching the disconnects of something that's all supposed to be connected. One interesting part, though, that was in this play that I looked back into the book just to see if I had somehow completely missed it.
Mm-hmm.
The ghost needs to find somebody who's willing to kill to go back in time to prevent the human race from ever existing.
Right.
And they found Michael, who killed the new editor of Fathom magazine, which was taken from him.
Right.
In the book, the editor's name was either Al Ross or A.K. Ross. In the play, they spelled out his first name as Albert. So, Michael killed Albert Ross. Or Albatross.
Mm-hmm.
To tie it in with Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Okay.
Were we supposed to understand that Al was Albert when we read the book?
Probably. That's the kind of joke that Douglas Adams would expect us to understand.
But Albert isn't the only root or whatever for Al.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
And what does the K stand for?
Killed?
Yeah.
Oh.
About the character of Richard.
Mm-hmm.
There was no motivation for him to have climbed into the third-story window of Susan's apartment. He didn't make a phone call. He didn't have to get a tape. He didn't go into her apartment, steal the tape, and then change his mind and put it back.
Okay.
He just climbed into her apartment for no apparent reason, did nothing, but apparently the ghost was dissatisfied with what he did and left him for Michael. So,
okay.
It was just like they could have written in him making a horrible voice message on her answering machine and then regretting it and going to get it. But it would have taken 15 seconds. You know, so that's something I don't know why they cut out because it's a crucial plot point.
Right. Right.
Like we talked about the movie, it isn't that they cut out all the jokes. They only told the first half of the joke, and they left out the punchline. So they're with Richard, they have him doing the climb in the window, but they don't have the whole reason he climbed in the window and what made the ghost decide he can't go against his nature or this isn't his nature. So, all right.
So could you tell that Richard was possessed by the ghost when he was climbing through the window?
No.
I mean, did they do something to give you any indication that that's what his motivation was, that he was possessed?
No, because you don't know that in the book.
Right.
And there was nothing with Reg either. When Reg did the conjuring trick at the Coleridge dinner, he was possessed by the ghost, and that made him go back in time. But eventually, he said that he fought it too hard. The ghost must have got tired, and that's when he jumped into Richard at the dinner. And then Richard climbed through the window, but he didn't take the tape because there wasn't a tape to take, or there was a tape, but he didn't have to do anything with it anyway. And then Michael came in because he was on the date with Susan, and then the ghost jumped to Michael, but nobody witnessed any of that during the play. There was no indication that there was a ghost jumping. But at the end, in the second act, Reg said, "Oh yes, I felt him leave me. Where could he have gone?" And they looked at Richard, and Richard's like, "Oh yeah." And then I felt the ghost leave me, and he must have gone into Michael, because Michael was the other one, So they do spell it out, what happened, and the progression of the ghost going from person to person to person. But the reason the ghost left Richard isn't presented in any way that we'd recognize.
Gotcha.
They do reference Richard's couch stuck in the stairwell. And they have a couch kind of half on stage, and it's kind of just there for a gag. Because Richard doesn't have to make a restaurant reservation a week before when the couch was delivered to all of that. But in thinking about that part of the book again, I've actually satisfied in my mind the whole situation about the couch and how it's permanently stuck and how it didn't actually get delivered, and the end really didn't change anything because the end actually happened. And maybe this has already come to you and you might say, well, yeah, that's exactly what we talked about when we talked about the book. But it didn't stick in my mind.
Right.
This time it stuck.
Okay.
So what they don't specify but had to be the case is Richard's apartment is on the second floor, and the stairway to it is a switchback with two identical turns. Okay? So it's not just a one turn, it's a two turn stairway.
Yep.
As they're bringing the couch up the stairs, they get to the first turn. The door is there because they went back in time to make the phone reservation.
Right.
And they open the door and it makes the turn.
Right.
He makes his dinner reservation and they leave. And the door disappears.
Right.
The couch can't make the second turn because there's no door to open.
Right.
So they try to leave. But they can't get around the corner because there's no door to open.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly the way I recall it.
Yes. So now I want to talk about a couple of the cast and the characters. Everybody did put in a really good performance, but there are a few that I'm going to say I liked more than the others because they surprised me in some way. One, there was no way I thought that it could possibly be accomplished, or I thought that the character was so uninteresting that I couldn't possibly be impressed by a performance because it's a write-off nothing character. So we're going to start with the young gentleman who played Dirk.
Okay.
He was fantastic. I can't even imagine memorizing all of that dialogue, much less being able to say it without stumbling every single time that you tried to say it. He did something interesting where he channeled the demeanor of the Samuel Barnett version, but he retained the character of Dirk that we recognize from the books.
Oh, good.
So in the Elijah Wood, Samuel Barnett version, it's a great show, but like we've mentioned, he's not Dirk Gently.
No.
This young gentleman portrayed Dirk Gently, and he kept the same energy, and I don't know what that Samuel Barnett had that was fantastic and made that show great, though he really wasn't Dirk. He kept all that, but made it Dirk, which
Wow.
again,
Wow.
I don't know how he did it.
Right.
I don't know how he did it. The performance that surprised me the most, because in all honesty, I would have expected the person that was cast for this role could have easily phoned in their performance and just monotone, nothing. It was his secretary, Janice. She's got very few lines.
Right.
She answers the phone. She does a couple of quips to him, a couple of quips to Richard, but line-wise, very few lines of dialogue. But her physicality with her body language and her gestures and her posture was unbelievable. This person just embodied this, just despised Dirk, like everything, her frustration, everything that embodied Janice, which in the first TV show that was just called Dirk Gently, that only had the one season, that Janice was kind of shut down.
Right.
She was all frustrated and all of that, but it got to her, and aside from throwing a stapler, she was pretty shut down.
Mm-hmm.
The young lady that portrayed Janice in this was fantastic. It's one of those, why is this character so interesting? This is a throwaway character who's just there to kind of not answer the phone, and she's actually an interesting character.
Great.
The actor that played Sergeant Gilks completely transformed into my exact vision of who Gilks was.
Great.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like, we've seen Gilks in the other shows, and he was funny and everything, but there was something wrong. Somehow, I totally accepted this as Sergeant Gilks. So, those were the three absolutely tremendous performances.
Excellent.
Couple others I want to mention, like Reg.
Mm-hmm.
William Smith. I'm not familiar with the community theater. Since he got a special and, he must be prominent in the DuPage Art Council theater and all of that. I'm unaware of who he is, but to me, he probably had the easiest role, because forgetfulness and stumbling is the embodiment of his character.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can't notice a mistake because that's just who the character was. So I applaud him for taking on Reg, and his performance was flawless because any mistake he would have made fit perfectly into the character of Reg.
Right. Right.
I kind of like when people break on stage. When actors are doing comedy together and they're trying to make each other laugh is one thing, but when a character is trying not to laugh, but the line that they find the funniest in the whole play is about to come up and they're sitting there trying not to laugh, and then Dirk says the line perfectly and they kind of go and like you can hear it like that was perfect. So I'm not 100% positive, but I do think that the character of Richard did break when Dirk said this line. The cat had merely got fed up with being repeatedly locked up in a box and occasionally gassed, and had taken the first opportunity to hoof it through the window. So, one of my favorite lines in the book, and it got to one of the actors on stage, which isn't something that's detrimental to me because it proves that they are enjoying the piece. Like, they find it funny. They're not just doing it. So Saturday Night Live all the time has battles where each one is trying to make the other one break during a skit. And again, if he did, he may have thought that, oh my God, I can't believe I laughed when I wasn't supposed to laugh, but who cares? It was good. So I did ask Denise if she wanted to come on this episode and talk about the play. And she gave me a response that was worthy of the character of Janice Pierce. But I did ask her to tell me a little bit of something that I could relate.
Mm-hmm.
So she did. And she said that even though she has not read the book and has seen some of the TV shows, even though the play wasn't about any of the TV shows, she understood Dirk's methods. So she didn't have to wrap her mind around that part while watching the play to figure out what was going on.
Okay.
Because that's another thing. So she was glad that she knew a little bit about Dirk.
Okay, good.
She found it very difficult to follow the threads in the second act.
All right.
Like I mentioned, because there aren't any. She said, as somebody who would know absolutely nothing about Dirk Gently, if they just went to this, it would be unlikely that they would have any idea what's going on.
Right.
Which I understand. I completely understand. And the funny part was, before we went, I kind of said, all right, here's a couple of crucial things that you need to know. And I told her a couple of things, none of which were in the play. So here's the core pieces that the play is built around that you really need to know in your mind. Oh, wait, no, they didn't do any of that. So, all right, I don't know what Goss and David were thinking when they did that part, but that's up to them. What do they say? The actors could only read from their own script. They had no input into what was actually said.
Right.
Another thing that she did say was that she found that the actor who portrayed Dirk did a fantastic job.
Good.
She also was very impressed by him. Mm-hmm. And when we were having that conversation, I had also mentioned that I had enjoyed Susan's performance because she does a very good job. And Denise just said that, well, I'll put it in a way that we've talked about before. She just thought I was extremely impressed with the sheer number of people on her balcony.
Ah, I see. So she figured that's why you were staring at her so intently.
Yes, I guess so.
Oh, thank God for the French.
Yes. Her performance was outstanding. She was all in. She was believable. Like I mentioned, everybody did a really good job. And the last character I want to talk about is the actor that portrayed Michael Wenton Weeks. Now, he did a really good job because I did not like him from the moment I saw him.
A key feature.
Which I don't know if that is a compliment, but that's his character.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to hate this guy from the moment you see him.
Yep.
And I don't know if he projected that or if I projected it on him, but he worked as a character that way.
A sign of a good actor.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent.
Oh, some of the staging, or costuming, I guess would be the better way to say it. There is the hypnosis scene that Dirk is repeating to Richard what Richard told him. Mm-hmm. And one of the things was about the little girl and the conjuring trick.
Right.
And he mentioned that, according to Richard, she was wearing a blue velvet dress with a nice big white Peter Pan collar and a big red bow in her hair, and third button down on the dress had a little string hanging from it, or something like that. And Richard is like, I couldn't have said that because I don't know what a Peter Pan collar is. And he's like, but I do, and you described it perfectly. That all happens way later than the opening, which is the dinner where the little girl is.
Right.
So just to see if they were actually paying attention to detail at the end of the show during the curtain call when all of the cast comes out and takes their bows, I specifically looked to see if the third button down on the dress had a string hanging from it, and it did.
Good.
So again, I applaud them for that, because nobody would ever know in the beginning, or most people wouldn't notice that the dress had a string hanging from the button as being a crucial piece of plot that's going to be brought up at a later time. And I didn't even notice it the first time. The little girl did a fantastic job stomping on everybody's foot, but that was a whole nother another thing. But I made sure that I checked, and they did perfectly in doing that detail. And that's one of those, wow, if they paid attention to that detail, all the other details that they were supposed to pay attention to in my book were most likely paid attention to, because I really didn't notice any production shortcuts or errors.
Right.
So as I mentioned, this performance was at the community center in Warrenville, and the next performance is May 23rd through the 25th at the Roger C. Clare Performing Arts Center in Bolingbrook. And I hope that Michael Fudala, who I gave one of our stickers to so he'd have the name of our podcast because I was telling him about it, I hope he gets to listen to this before the next thing. And if he liked it, and if he listened to some of our other episodes and he liked those, I will happily go to the last Sunday performance in Bolingbrook to see the bigger, better production in the outdoor theater. And if if you make it out here, we are allowed into the after party if they have one, I will happily interview all of the cast members for this podcast.
Oh man, wouldn't that be awesome?
I think it would be fantastic.
So speaking of the production, let me ask you.
Sure.
Was the audience full? Was it a full audience?
Yes, it was full. Again, it was a very small theater.
And this was a Friday night, right?
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday. Oh, great.
Yes.
Great.
We saw the Saturday night performance. So we got there early. Somehow I thought that it was going to be a 7 o'clock performance, and it was 7:30. So it was 20 minutes to 7, and we walked in the door, and there was nobody in the theater except the one person that was checking tickets. And she's like, "Oh, sorry, we're not ready for people yet. We don't start till 7:30. Get the hell out of here." No. She said the doors will open at 7. So we went, perfect. And we went out and just came back at 7 o'clock. Sat right in the front row. So you're looking at the staging. So there's a stage, and then there are 2 side areas that have black curtains over them. And my first thought was that there were 2 side sets. Because it jumps from the dinner to Richard's house to Dirk's office and that kind of thing. So I thought they were going to like pull open curtains, and that was going to be a set on this side, and that was going to be a set on that side, and then just this empty floor in the middle in front of us. Well, they did a little bit on the stage, but almost the entire performance was on the floor in front of the stage, literally 5 feet from us. There was actually parts where they're running around that I'm thinking, they're going to fall on us. But
oh my goodness.
Everybody was safe. No one was injured during the performance that I know of.
Did they have pizza and cats?
They talked about Schrodinger's cat, but they did not have a cat, and there was a box with at least one single piece of pizza in it.
So, well, when you got there, you texted me.
Yes.
And I sent you what I thought I would do had I been there. Because I cannot imagine that the people that attended that particular production on a Saturday night would not be the perfect candidates for our audience and our podcast. So I imagine that I would have been that guy introducing myself to everybody in the audience and passing out the cards to our podcast.
So I have a couple of thoughts on that, and I am in no way, shape, or form trying to be mean, because we're doing this podcast. We don't have a vast audience.
No, we don't. But we could have. No.
Yeah. So, community theater audience members, in my mind, are vast majority friends and family of the performers.
Yes. Did you get the impression then that all the actors and actresses were from the Chicago area?
Oh yeah, they're all from the Bolingbrook, DuPage area. I am sure. This is not a touring company of any sort. This is just a local theater group that does 2 or 3 plays a year, every year for who knows how many years they've been doing it. They did a tremendous job. I am not saying that there were other people who were there that had no relationship to anybody on stage.
Right, but I can give you the trick. So you know that my wife and I have season tickets to, well, I guess it's considered a community theater that we attend on a Friday night during the theater season. And we go to every one of the shows that they produce, and usually they're musicals and that kind of thing. But I can tell you that the key to knowing who's in the audience, if the people in the audience have flowers in their lap, they're family members or friends. Because those are the ones that you know they're going to show up with flowers or something like that to congratulate the actors that are on stage. So they're easily seen and defined when you're in the audience.
Well, I have an aunt and uncle who perform at a community theater in Will County as opposed to DuPage County. And I've been to a couple of their performances, and I have never brought flowers.
Oh, what a mean guy.
I know. So I will say that you are a guaranteer of that person being a friend or family member.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't mean that there aren't more in there.
That's true. That's true.
To me, the way you can tell is how many audience members are staying around afterwards to greet the cast as they come out from the back after changing.
That's true. And the other clue is the ones that jump up first at the end of the production are also friends and family of the cast. So if those folks jumped up immediately, if the whole audience jumped up for a standing ovation, then you know your audience was full of friends and family.
As I texted you, they had a 50-50 raffle, and that I was in the front row, and asked you what the odds were, and you said it was pretty good. Well, I am just going to say that I did not win the 50-50 raffle, but the person who did was in the front row.
All right. I can see how all these things are connected.
And he was a gracious winner, and he actually did not accept the $44 prize. He just let the theater company keep it.
Oh, seriously. $44? They couldn't have done it. they couldn't have lied. Somebody screwed up somewhere.
Yep. There was $88 total, and they divided it up into 44. So I know. It would have just been too much. I think I'd have fallen off my chair if it was 42.
You know what's funny, though? In the state of New Jersey, it is now illegal to hold a 50-50 raffle and allow the person that won to donate the proceeds back to the organization.
Really?
Yep. It's in the state law.
Is there a reason behind it? Because I almost thought that every 50-50 raffle of small nature did that.
No, I don't know. I assume that it has to do with what someone in the state legislature decided was fair, but it's definitely codified in New Jersey law that if you are participating in a 50-50 raffle and you win, you are not allowed to donate the proceeds back to the organization.
Oh, I might have a thought on why.
Okay.
Maybe some of the legislature in New Jersey enjoy 50-50 raffles.
Yes.
And they want to keep the winnings for themselves. But because so many people donate it back, they feel like an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to not feel like an asshole is to make it illegal to give it back.
Yeah, I think it's actually listed in the codified law as non-asshole law.
I believe the official term is assholery.
Assholery. Okay, you got it.
Yes. Wow, I can't believe that somebody passed legislation about a 50-50 raffle.
Well, welcome to New Jersey. We are the California of the East.
First of all, I guess I'm going to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know about that law?
Well, it's because my wife, of course, is a vice principal at a school, and she's involved with the PTA and other organizations that support the teachers and the school. So she heard about it through those organizations. And being a vice principal and being a person who truly believes that you got to do what you say you're going to do, she makes sure that their organizations that come to the school understand their legal rights.
Okay. Well, that's because that could be a law in Illinois. Mm-hmm. But I would never think, I better look up this law before I give back
you're
my
right.
money.
I mean, it's so traditional for that to happen, and I've seen it happen so many times, and
right.
It's not always been that way.
If you go to a hockey game and they're having a 50-50 raffle, you're not giving that money back.
Exactly.
Because it's a stadium full of people that have bought tickets. But when it's a tiny community theater who, on the site where you buy your tickets for an extremely reasonable price, have a spot where you can donate more.
Exactly.
So to not be able to donate it back when you could donate when you buy your ticket makes it sound weird. Like, do you have to wait a day in New Jersey?
I don't have any idea. I suppose that you could take money out of your pocket and put the money into your pocket. You take the winnings and put it in your left pocket and take money out of your right and give it to them. Yeah. I'm sure there's a way around the law, but I just happen to know it's a law here in the state,
Wow, that is incredible.
So tell me, though, I think you were going to tell me a story about how you got to meet the director?
Yes. So the play ends, and I already warned Denise. I said, I've got to go find the director and talk to him just to say. She's like, yeah, I know. Go ahead. Be a geek or whatever that is.
Well, I'm so proud of you. I'm really proud of you, Jeff, because I know I've been in these situations with you before. And that people just tend to walk up to me if I'm wearing a graphic T-shirt and start talking about their Aunt Thelma from Flemington, New Jersey, for no reason.
Right.
I wouldn't expect that it's easy for you to go out there, but I'm surely glad you did. And what did you find?
So a couple of questions that I asked him, and I really hope to get more in depth after being invited to the after party. But the first thing I said to him was, I didn't even know that this play existed. And he said something along the lines of, neither did I until a month before we started. So he is such a Douglas Adams fan that he's looking for a play to do, discovers this play, and it's the next thing he does. It's not I got to put this in somewhere down low. We're doing it immediately.
Wow.
And so I asked him, why did you take on such an ambitious play? I mean, holy cow, this is not light, material. This is like complex, twisted comedy thing. And it's basically just because he was a Douglas Adams fan. I mean, he just loved Douglas Adams. And so that's when I said that so am I, and me and a buddy of mine do a kind of a all Douglas Adams type of podcast. And I brought a sticker with me. Mm-hmm. And I was able to give him the sticker, and he looked at the sticker, and he went, this. He's like, that's like one of my favorite lines in the whole series. So he could have been pandering or placating or whatever term fits best there, but I like that. I believe he got the thing because it's in the fourth book.
Right.
People don't get to the fourth book a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I basically told him a lot of what we just talked about here about the cast and how great they did and how wonderful their performances with difficult material. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the disappointment in the second act and how it all doesn't fit together because they cut so much out of the beginning that there was nothing left to put together at the end. And he said that he agreed that there were parts of it that he wasn't happy with the way it was, but that's the way it was, and that's what he has to do.
Right, exactly. He's a director, not a co-writer.
Correct. And something that I was asking him about, and this is making me want to go see the Bolingbroke production even more, is the actor who plays Dirk is different in Bolingbroke.
Oh, really?
And it's a female.
Wow. Cool.
But it's not like the Jodie Whittaker version of Doctor Who. She dresses as a man. So she's a female character playing a male role.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Which they are legally obligated to do. They can't, in his contract, say, we want her to be Dirk S. and make it a female detective.
Okay.
They have to do it as every male role in the cast has to be played as a male role, but can be performed by either male or female.
Interesting.
And I'm guessing that it's the same way for the female roles, but that gets Monty Python-esque and...
Oh, my goodness.
And that might be a little distracting.
Yes. Oh, there's a penguin on the television set.
Yeah, Intercourse the penguin. Or should I say, Intercourse the penguin?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's really exciting. I mean, I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I hear from what you say that it was a show worth seeing for any fan of Douglas Adams.
Absolutely.
And this little community theater has done the material proud, and that's an exciting thing. Not to get into too much detail here, but as you know, I've had that retina surgery, so I'm banned from flying for the next 6-8 weeks.
Right.
So I would have been at your house and attending the second running of this show myself if it weren't for the fact that, currently I can't see out of my right eye.
Yes. Knowing that and what we've talked about, is there a chance that you could say, oh, wait, I've had nothing, but now my vision's coming back better and better, and I can drive.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, there is a chance that that's going to happen. They've described to me the process in which I would see the change in my eye. The driving thing, right now, the visual cues I'm getting out of my right eye are very distracting. So they told me I'm clear to drive, and I do have to go back to the doctor by myself on Wednesday. So they said to throw an eye patch over my eye and drive to the doctor.
Right.
Which I'm not too bad about. But again, and they've described to me the process in which I will recover my eyesight. So it's really hard to say where the gas bubble will be at that particular time. So there's still a chance, but at this moment, it's hard to imagine.
Right.
If there is a miracle and the gas is out of my eye for that weekend, I will definitely fly up. But driving, I think we have to.
Okay.
So I was wondering about the music, actually, where we learned about the music of life and Bach and all that kind of stuff. Was that referenced in the play?
Extremely minimally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do not believe they ever said Bach. They did reference Richard working on an algorithm to turn nature into music in some kind of fashion about the article he wrote for Fathom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Susan played the cello, but without her playing Mozart in the beginning and Bach at the end, there's no reason for the cello. But it's part of her character.
Right.
And if you're watching the play, not knowing anything about the show or the book, you might say, it was an odd choice having her play the cello for no apparent reason. It was never referenced or mentioned. There was no practices. There was no this. She just played the cello. So yeah, another one of those, if you're going to cut something out, you sort of have to cut everything out, because when you leave these little tails, I guess it's for the diehard fans to say, oh yeah, she plays the cello for these reasons, but that then just reminds you of the reasons that they got rid of, and it upsets you or me.
Well, I have to tell you a story about music and a play.
Okay.
It just popped up when you said that about the continuity, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when I was in high school, we did, I think the play was David and Lisa, and I played a character that played the flute.
Okay.
And of course, I have no musical skill whatsoever.
You didn't actually have to play the flute.
In the play, I was supposed to play the flute. Okay. And there were more than one showing. I mean, it was a whole weekend thing. We did the show like 5 or 6 times, whatever it is we do when you're doing high school drama. And I can't remember. I believe it was the second night. Well, what they did in order for me to play the flute on stage was there was a young lady, very talented flute player, who stood just inside the wing. You were talking about the curtain, the side curtain that's on the side. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a point where a character or a person can stand between the wing and the front curtain and not be seen by the audience.
Okay.
So she stood there, and I was sitting in a chair within her visual range, and then I would pick up the flute, bring it to my mouth, and start playing. And when she saw me do that, then she'd start playing. Well, and we did this over and over again during rehearsal, and we got really good at it. But on the second night, she started playing before the flute got to my mouth, and the whole audience started laughing.
That's talent.
Oh, gosh.
There was some cello playing.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly recorded music that she just pantomimed playing the cello without actually playing it. But there was one part where it's kind of like the bum, 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 like that kind of a thing where she was just able to run the bow across the string and slide her hand up the neck. And she wasn't playing any song, but it was to make a noise. And so there was one actual cello playing, but mostly it was pantomimed recorded music, which is what I would fully expect.
Interesting. So overall, Jeff, as you say, I think you've indicated that they did a terrific job.
Absolutely.
And you really enjoyed this show, and you would highly recommend it to other people if they get a chance to see it.
Yes, I cannot thank them enough for producing this and putting this on, because there's so little opportunity to see Douglas Adams' work anywhere anymore. So again, thank you for this. And I truly hope to go see it again. I'm sure Denise won't come with me. Maybe I'll find another friend to bring, or maybe your eye will heal and
yes,
you will miraculously come out. But it'll probably be me by myself, because I truly want to see it again. And I am really curious to see the new portrayal of Dirk, because this first one was so fantastic. It's going to be hard not to compare them, and I don't want to compare them, so I hope they're different enough that they're equally tremendous.
Well, fantastic. So now that we've reached the end of this production, what's next?
Well, I think we're going to get back onto our regular schedule. Thank you for listening to this special edition thrown in at the last minute because it just popped up episode. Timing is actually perfect. So we're going to still, first Thursday in May, we're going to do the comic book, the second volume, A Spoon Too Short, as we kind of mentioned, written by Arvind Ethan David. And we'll do 3 episodes, we hope, in May, and the final 2 episodes in June.
So now that we understand what's next, I'll have to say, Jeff, this is the end.
Thank you for listening to this. A new episode is released on the first Thursday of every month. A special thank you goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com. While there, you can find links to all of my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can contact us via email at digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. You can message us on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea. And our Instagram is Watches Idea Podcast.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.